What is up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about Raycast. Now, Raycast has been described in a few ways. It's an app launcher, a workflow and productivity tool, and it could also be used as a complete Spotlight replacement for Mac. Now, as you can see the UI is pretty clean. I can search for apps directly, so that's one of the things that you'd expect from an app launcher. But you can also assign hotkeys to open certain apps really quickly. And you can see the hotkeys that I'm using at the bottom of the screen here. So you can see this is the hotkey I've set up to open Framer. So if I hit that, it'll pop open Framer really quick. And then I can do the same with my browser, for instance. And you can do that by going into your extension settings under applications, and you can see that you can record hotkeys for any apps that you've got already installed. Now, another thing you'd expect from something like this is a calculator. So you can do basic calculations, everything that Spotlight can do and more. So you can do basic math, but you can also do some interesting things like percentages. So 12% 4,000, for instance. And then you can also do currency conversions. So I'll do 12,000 USD to CAD. And that also works with crypto. So I can replace USD with ETH, Bitcoin, etc. You can also convert units. So 12 feet to meters. We can also do to centimeters and anything else you might imagine. And then you can also do time zones. So you can do time in London. And then lastly, you can also do degrees. So 12 Celsius, and you could do the opposite as well. That's pretty basic stuff. But some more cool and interesting things you can do. For instance, I can check my schedule, and that's connected with the default calendar app you've got set up on Mac, and clicking that will just open the default calendar app. So this is pretty useful. Another thing that comes built in is the dictionary, of course, but I've got a hotkey so that I can define a word directly. So I'll click that hotkey, and then you can see recent words, or you can type in new ones, and then you can open that directly in the dictionary by pressing enter. But also Raycast is meant to be used with keyboard shortcuts. So you can see if I hit Command K for other actions, there's all sorts of other things that I can do. You can paste into Finder, open in a dictionary, copy word to clipboard, etc. And this is pretty universal. So these shortcuts can be used with different applications, depending on what it is you're using. And I'll explain a bit more about that soon. So outside of that, another useful thing is a floating notes feature. So if you want to quickly write something, that's super useful. And you could toggle that on and off. What else? So the default emoji picker is really useful and much nicer than the stock macOS one. Another benefit of this is that you can search not only emojis, but Unicode characters as well. That's really nice. And you could set the hotkey to whatever you want, but I set it to the same thing as default macOS. Now, another really interesting feature is Clipboard History. Now, I've used other third-party apps in the past for this, like Paste, and there's a few others. But all I have to do, you can either, again, search for it in the search bar, So Clipboard History. But as you can see, I've got a hotkey set up for this. So from anywhere I am, I can just trigger it like this. I can see previous things that I've copied to my clipboard, SVGs, links that'll show you a nice preview, even hex color values. They'll show you the preview of the color. And then hitting enter will just copy it directly to your clipboard. But you can also take some more actions by hitting Command K. You can paste it to Finder, open in your browser. You can even send to AI chat, and we'll get to AI soon. And you can save a snippet, which brings me to the next feature that I use quite often, which is snippets. So again, you can either create a snippet, import, or search. But as you can see here, I've got a hotkey set up. So I'll open that. You can see these are all sorts of icons, SVGs, my email address, common things that I've saved to my clipboard, Unicode characters that I like to reuse. And Raycast makes this super easy to do. So if I wanted to use one of these, for instance, I'll type in, let's say, up, and then it'll replace that text with the snippet that I've got. So I use $sign here, similar to JavaScript variables, as my shortcut. So I'll just write, let's say, right, and it'll replace that with a right arrow. And to create a snippet, you just type it in, create snippet, and then you put in your snippet name. So hi, and then you could put in an emoji, for instance, and then your keyword is what you want to use to trigger it. So if you do that, and I'll put here a little wave. So I'll name it hi, I'll put a wave emoji, and then the keyword will be $hi, and then I'll create that. So now every time I write $hi, it'll just replace that right away with the saved snippet. So super useful. So what else? Another cool thing that they've got built in is confetti. And I set this up with a hotkey because it's fun to do in certain videos. So if I trigger that, you can see it triggers some confetti, which is fun. So you can see in the extensions here, these are all the things that I've got installed. And some of these are third-party apps, which I'll get into now. So these are apps that you can install from the Raycast store. So if you want to go to the store, you just have to type in store, Raycast. You can see the featured ones, trending ones, and then all extensions. And you could search for specific tools that you might use that may have extensions. So you can see the ones with the check marks are the ones that I've got installed already. And we'll go through those right now. So the first one would be, and these are used pretty often. I would say I use most of these every day. First one I use is Clean Shot. This is to take video recordings and screen grabs and things like that and easily share them. So all I have to do is hit my hotkey, and then I can drag to record a part of the screen, or I can press the space bar to record active windows. So if I drag a part of the screen, here's where I can configure some more settings. And this is essentially just the Clean Shot app, but Raycast allows me to open and trigger these settings really quickly. Another one that I use almost every day is the color picker. So open that, and as soon as I do that, it opens a color picker. And then from there, I can just pick any color that I want. And as soon as I click, that hex value is copied to my clipboard. And I'll open my clipboard here, and you can see it's triggered here. And I can even, with more actions, I can copy color as hex, RGBA, hex with alpha, all sorts of things. This is really useful. Another thing I can do is control my lights. So I can set a specific scene. These are lights in my home. I can control my lights, turn them on and off. Really nice. Another thing is I can do with, what is it called? Incognito clone. So this is useful. I set up a hotkey so that it clones the tab that I've got open in my browser and opens it in incognito mode. So if I open my browser, and let's say I go to an article like this, you can see, you're probably familiar with something like this. We see you're using an ad blocker. So this is typical. So if you want to avoid disabling your ad blocker, and you can do this with really quickly with a keyboard shortcut, I'll just hit that hotkey and it'll open that same window, that same article in incognito mode, which does not have any ad blocker set up, and I can continue reading that article. So useful for things like that. And it's also useful for products that you may be logged into, which have a different view if you're logged in or you're logged out. So if you open that in incognito, you could view the home page differently once you're logged out. So that's also useful. Now, going back to the browser a second, you can see in the URL bar that very often websites that you're signed into will have a different URL for the dashboard or the app or the web app. And so instead of relying on your browser history to do that, another very useful feature of Raycast are quick links. So you can see here that if I pop open Raycast, I can either search quick links or I can create quick links. But quick links allow you to assign a URL like this one and be able to visit that with either a keyboard shortcut or by searching the app directly. So you can see here I have a Cosmos quick link. So if I enter that, it takes me to my clusters on Cosmos. And I have, you can see some of the other quick links I have here for web apps that I've logged into or different profiles. And this is really useful for going to sites that you visit often, and you could save any link as a quick link. So this is really useful as well. So what else have we got here? Oh yeah, another really useful one are image modifications. So let's say I've got this wallpaper here, and you can see it's 10 megabytes and it's 6,000 by 3375. So quite a large image. So if I wanted to use this, let's say on a website, I definitely want to shrink this down and I want to optimize this. So typically I would used to go to certain sites, compressor.io or other image modification sites, but now I can do this through Raycast apps really easily. So as long as I've got this item selected in the Finder, I'll just hit Command Space, and I'll type in, let's say, actually the first thing I'll do is convert the image. Now, little hack, you can actually do this by default in macOS. Under Quick Actions, you can convert an image, but there's just not that many. I'm not sure why it's not popping up for me right now. Well, another reason to use Raycast. So you can just select an image, type in convert images, and then you can see all these options that you can convert them to. So really useful. So we'll just convert this PNG to JPEG, and you can see it duplicates it right away. And JPEGs are much better to use on the web because they're much smaller file size. So even without shrinking the image, you can see the PNG is almost 11 megabytes and the JPEG is just 1. So I'll further compress this by, I'll resize this image. So I'll delete this PNG, and this JPEG I'll go ahead and resize from 6,000 to 2,000. So with that image selected, I'll just type in resize. And what's cool is you get these options directly. So if I hit tab now, I can go into the width area and I'll just do 2000 pixels. And the height I can leave blank, so it'll save the aspect ratios, and I'll just hit enter. And you can see it resize the image and it duplicates that. And you can see the dimensions here, 2000 instead. So now it's 143 KB instead of 1 megabyte. So I'll delete that, rename that. And then I can even go a step further and continue compressing. So I'll compress an image, and this is using tiny PNG. Then I'll hit enter. And you can see the compressed file is now only 65 kilobytes. And I could just drop that in, replace it. And there it is. So all sorts of modifications we can do with the image modification app. You can even do a bunch more things. You can flip images, give them some padding, scale them, apply image filters, and so forth. Another thing that you can do that's really useful that I didn't mention as a built-in app is window management. So I have this Finder window. The one that I'll use most often, the only one that I've got a shortcut for set up, is the center window. So if I hit Shift Command C, it just centers that. It's really useful. But I can also do it left half, let's say right half, and you could assign keyboard shortcuts to these as well. Let's see, another interesting app, useful app, I think it's called Polished. Yeah. And here's where you can convert hex codes to RGB and vice versa. So if I open some of these and I copy this hex code to my clipboard, and I do convert hex, so I just have to paste that in, and then hit enter, and then that'll give me the RGBA value and the HSLA if you need that as well. So really useful. And you can do the opposite if you're pasting in an RGB value. Let's see what else we got. Tiny PNG. The scan QR code is really useful. So if I open, got a QR code here. So instead of pulling out your phone in this scenario and scanning that, I could just type in scan QR code, and then prompts open a little drag cursor, just scan that area, and it'll open the QR code directly in your browser. Super, super useful. Let's see, another one that I've got set up as a hotkey is GIF search. So you can search a bunch of GIFs. Clicking them will copy that to your clipboard, and you can paste that into any app that you'd like. And what else? That's the gist of it, guys. And the last thing that I want to talk about is Raycast AI. Now, this is probably the most useful feature for me personally. I use this all the time, and it prevents me from going and searching Google or going directly from to OpenAI's website to search ChatGPT. So I can do this by, instead of command space, I set this up by using option space. So, and here's where I can ask AI anything. So for instance, I can ask it, generate 10 titles for a YouTube video about Raycast. And this is by far the quickest way to utilize AI directly within your desktop. So you don't have to go to any URL, and you can do all sorts of things with this. So if I hit Command K, I can paste response into different apps. I can copy to my clipboard. I can even regenerate. I could generate a title for it. I can even change the model or creativity if I want to. And I can do this for all sorts of things, right? So I can say, generate CSS code to center a div, and it'll give me code directly. I can even copy directly to my clipboard. So really useful. I'm not going to go into any more details than that, but basically you get to utilize AI directly from Raycast, and this is a pro feature with reason. So if I open my Raycast settings, you can see under AI, Cloud Sync is also a pro feature, which is useful. So you can see you're on the pro plan, but definitely recommended. And that is it for this video, guys. This is a quick run through of how I personally use Raycast, and I'll probably be making another one as more third-party apps will be released and as Raycast updates more features. I know they've got a lot in the pipeline, so I'm looking forward to that. And if you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments, and I'll get back to you. So thank you for watching. Take care.